Okay, so when you think of Elizabethan theater, one name just explodes into your mind, right? William Shakespeare. But here's the thing, the stage he completely took over didn't just pop up out of thin air. The entire golden age of English drama was actually built on the incredible game-changing work of his rivals, the pioneers who are way too often overlooked.
So that brings us to the big question. How did going to a play become the absolute must-see blockbuster entertainment of the 16th century? I mean, it's a great question because before this whole era, being a professional playwright, well, it wasn't exactly a respectable career. It was popular, sure, but it was seen as rowdy, not serious literature. Something major had to shift.
Before this theatrical boom, English drama was still, well, it was still kind of finding its voice. A lot of the plays were a bit preachy, heavy on the morals, or they followed these really rigid, old-school structures. They were just missing that professional spark, that raw, artistic ambition that was about to define an entire era.
And the change came from a totally unexpected corner. The stage was about to get a complete makeover, not by some wealthy lords with a casual hobby, but by a group of highly educated scholars who turned to writing plays out of pure necessity. It is time to meet the university wits.
So who were these guys, these wits? Just picture a crew of super smart, ambitious young men, fresh out of England's top universities. We're talking Oxford and Cambridge. They were walking around with heads full of classical literature and philosophy. But as we're about to see, they were also facing a really tough job market.
What's so wild is that a social problem basically lit the fuse for an artistic revolution. You see, the universities were just pumping out more graduates than there were jobs for them in the usual places, like the church or teaching. So these brilliant, kind of broke scholars looked over at London's buzzing theater scene and saw a huge opportunity. They decided to bring their highbrow training to the popular stage, mixing deep ideas with stuff that would get an audience excited. You could almost think of them as the scrappy, disruptive startups of the Elizabethan theater world.
And this wasn't just one person, it was a whole movement. Each of these writers brought something totally new and game-changing to the table. They were literally creating the genres and the tools that Shakespeare himself would later perfect. So let's dive in and meet these trailblazers.
And here's why they were so revolutionary together. Think of it like this. They were collectively building a brand new toolbox for drama. You have Christopher Marlowe, who gives us that ambitious, doomed tragic hero we know so well. Then Thomas Kyd comes along and invents the perfect stage for him, the bloody, action-packed revenge tragedy. Meanwhile, Robert Greene is basically inventing the romantic comedy, and John Lilly is crafting this super sophisticated, witty dialogue that just sparkles. They were writing the playbook.
But maybe the single most important innovation, the real technical game changer, was blank verse. See, before them, serious poetry was supposed to rhyme. By using unrhymed iambic pentameter, Marlowe and the others gave dialogue this whole new musicality, this kind of heartbeat that let characters feel so much more complex and real. It sounded poetic, but also psychologically true. It became the new gold standard.
Just listen to that. That's from Marlowe's play, Dr. Faustus. That is his famous mighty line. It's powerful, it's beautiful, and it's just packed with emotion. This was the new bar. This was Marlowe throwing down the gauntlet and showing everyone what was now possible on an English stage.
So, with all this innovation happening, the London theater scene was just electric. All the tools were there, right? You had complex characters, thrilling plots, clever romance, and this incredibly powerful new language. And into this world steps a new talent, a writer who didn't have a university degree, but who had an unbelievable ear for language and a deep understanding of what makes people tick.
And yeah, the established wits were not exactly thrilled about it. This famous insult comes from a pamphlet written by Robert Greene back in 1592, and he is, of course, talking about William Shakespeare. Greene is basically calling him a cocky nobody, an upstart crow, who's getting famous by stealing their ideas. He's beautified with our feathers. This quote just perfectly captures the professional jealousy that Shakespeare's lightning-fast success kicked up.
And Greene had good reason to be worried. Shakespeare's rise was meteoric. After this mysterious period we call the Lost Years, he just explodes onto the London scene around 1592. And by 1599, he's not just a writer, he's a shareholder in the brand new Globe Theatre, the most famous playhouse in the entire world. The man was not just an artist, he was a seriously savvy businessman.
And his business smarts were just undeniable. He didn't just write for one type of audience. He was a shareholder in both the Globe, this huge open-air theater for the general public, and the Blackfriars, which was a smaller, indoor, more exclusive theater for the wealthy elite. He cornered the entire market. He could put on these epic, sprawling histories for the masses in the summer, and then stage intimate, intense dramas for aristocrats in the winter. It was brilliant. Okay, so what was it? What was the secret sauce that took him from being this upstart crow to becoming the most famous playwright in the history of the world? What really cemented that incredible legacy?
Well, first off, just the sheer volume and quality of his work. We know of 39 plays that he wrote, and honestly, we are so lucky that 7 years after he died, his friends and colleagues published the first folio. It's this collection that saved plays like Macbeth and The Tempest that might have just been lost to time otherwise.
But beyond just the number of plays, it was his incredible versatility. Shakespeare took every single genre his rivals had pioneered and just pushed them to their absolute limits. He wrote these gut-wrenching tragedies, laugh-out-loud comedies, epic histories, and then later in his career, he wrote these strange, beautiful romances and these morally murky problem plays. The man could truly do it all.
But in the end, his impact really boils down to this: a profound understanding of human nature that feels just as true today as it did 400 years ago. He dug into these universal themes: love, ambition, jealousy, forgiveness, with characters who feel so deeply, complicatedly real. And he did it all with such a mastery of language that he literally invented words we still use all the time.
Which really leaves us with this one big question to chew on. Was Shakespeare some lone genius who just appeared out of nowhere fully formed? Or was he the ultimate student, someone who soaked up every single innovation from the university wits, the blank verse, the character types, the plots, and then perfected them, elevating their work to a level no one had even imagined was possible? It's something to think about.